After two heartwarming twins, he left his wife for another. What was revealed changed everything. In the heart of a small, weathered town, where the sun set in a blaze of warm colors and laughter echoed through the streets, Joe felt trapped. Once, he was a mechanic who knew nothing but joy. His modest auto shop bustled with life. Customers came and went, and his twin daughters, Lily and Grace, filled their home with giggles. But now, the laughter faded, overshadowed by rising bills and mounting responsibilities. The love he shared with his wife, Lisa, began to flicker like a dying bulb, dimmed by unsaid words and unshared burdens. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the rolling hills, the familiar scent of home-cooked meals wafted through their open windows. Yet, Joe sat in his garage, feeling the walls close in. He could hear the laughter of the neighbors at barbecues, their families huddled together, celebrating life. Yet, Joe felt alone, staring out at a world of connection while he remained shrouded in his struggles. Then Sarah arrived, a new co-worker who injected a spark into his mundane existence. Her laughter felt like a sweet melody cutting through his despair. She listened, really listened. Each conversation became a tempting escape, fueling a dangerous friendship that pushed him away from the responsibilities of home. Conversations with Sarah ignited memories of dreams long buried beneath duty, and for a fleeting moment, he felt alive again. But the allure brought whispers of betrayal, echoing through the tight-knit town, each rumor tightening the noose around his heart. Life at home spiraled downwards. Lisa withdrew, her pain morphing into a cold silence. The girls sensed it too, their innocent laughter turned into hesitant giggles. The air was thick with unspoken grievances. Every family that once marveled at their closeness now stirred in judgment. Joe's heart ached as he felt the weight of discontent pulling him further from his family, warring between the desire for liberation and the unbreakable bond he had with his girls. But then, the storm struck, a dark, unforgiving tempest that swept through the town, leaving chaos in its wake. Joe watched helplessly as houses were drenched and debris littered the streets. Something shifted within him. In this disaster, amidst the wreckage, he realized what held the highest value. It wasn't the whispers of betrayal or thoughts of escapism. It was the smiles of his daughters and the shared past with Lisa that made his life whole. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With newfound clarity, Joe reached out to Lisa. "We need to put this aside for our girls, for us," he urged, his heart pounding. Side by side, they began to pick up the pieces of their broken town and their fractured marriage. As they worked together, vulnerabilities spilled out, conversations flowed unashamedly, and regrets mingled with hope. Just as they started to glimpse a path toward healing, a haunting question lingered in Joe's mind. Could the love that once anchored them prove strong enough to weather the storm, or had the scars of betrayal carved an irreversible change into their future? As he stood amid the chaos, a flicker of hope ignited in his chest, a chance to rebuild everything he held dear. But would it be enough? The cleanup after the storm became a metaphor, a poignant representation of Joe's life. He found himself working alongside Lisa, shoveling debris and sweeping away remnants of broken roofs and shattered dreams. The rhythm of their labor echoed their silent commitment. Each splintered board they removed was a barrier torn down between them. As the days melted into one another, Joe noticed subtle changes. Lisa was smiling again, a hint of it at least. The way she tossed her hair back or laughed softly when the girls played made his heart flutter with warmth. He wanted to ask her about the future, to speak boldly about repairing their fractured relationship. But the words felt heavy on his tongue. One evening, as they sat exhausted on the porch after a long day's work, Joe heard the familiar sounds of children playing in the distance. It was a symphony of laughter and chatter, and suddenly it hit him he missed that music. Their girls had become unusually quiet. Listening to them, he felt an ache in his chest. "They need us," he muttered, more to himself than to Lisa. Lisa's gaze followed Joe's, a silence filling the space between them. "They do," she finally said, her voice soft but clear. "We can't let our struggles drown them out." His heart raced as he realized she was willing to confront the unspoken rift. "How do we bring back the old us?" he asked gently. Lisa turned to him, her eyes glimmering in the fading daylight. "We start with honesty, Joe. It's time we talked, really talked." That night, they set aside their exhaustion and let words spill out, some raw and jagged. Images of their past filled the spaces of the darkened living room, their first dance, lazy Sunday mornings, those silly family photos where the twins wore matching outfits. With every memory shared, they also faced the hurt, the long nights when communication faltered and the temptations that led him astray. Tears dripped down Lisa's cheeks during their honest exchange. "I felt invisible, Joe," she confessed, each word flowing like a river of pent-up emotion. "I didn't know how to reach you." "I know it was my fault," Joe replied, his voice quaking with regret. "I didn't just neglect you. I neglected us. I forgot who we were." As they spoke, they began to weave their relationship anew, thread by thread. There was still uncertainty, still the childhood ghosts of doubt that hovered at the edges, but the light of hope flickered brighter. The next day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Sarah stood at the edge of Joe's driveway, uncertain and apprehensive. Clutching a box of leftover supplies from the town relief effort, she called out with a friendly wave. "I thought I'd check in on you. Heard about the storm," and Joe's heart sank. This was the last thing he needed, another reminder of his moment of weakness. Lisa's hand found his, squeezing it tightly. The warmth surged through, steadying him. "Can we talk?" Sarah asked, a hint of concern shadowing her face. Joe exchanged a glance with Lisa, anxiety gripping him. It was a crossroads moment. Did he work hard to mend his family? Did he dare allow Sarah back into their lives? He took a breath, feeling his resolve wavering. "Yeah, we can talk," he replied, though doubt gnawed at him. His decision felt like a tightrope walk between old habits and newfound hope. Just as he turned to lead Sarah into the house, he sensed Lisa's grip tighten. The distance between them pulsed with unsaid fears that in that moment. Joe wondered, could he juggle the fallout of his past while nurturing the seeds of renewal they had just begun to plant? The air felt thicker, the kind of tension that made Joe's skin prickle. His breath came in shallow gasps as he stepped towards Sarah, uncertain of what this encounter would unleash. They hadn't spoken since the fallout, the whispered accusations, the guilt, so many feelings coiling tightly around his heart. "Thanks for coming by," he said, forcing a smile as they approached the porch. "We appreciate the supplies." "You did your part during the relief drive," Sarah replied, her tone earnest but with a hint of hesitation. "I'm just glad I could help." Lisa remained quiet, standing just behind Joe, arms crossed tightly over her chest. The porch was their territory, once a place of laughter and shared moments, now feeling like a battleground as they settled around the small table. A disconcerting quiet enveloped them. Joe's eyes flitted between Sarah and Lisa, searching for a sign that would indicate which path he should take. "I came to check on you, and to apologize." Sarah's voice broke the silence, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I never meant to come between you two. I guess I didn't fully understand the depth of what I was doing." Apology accepted, Lisa spoke flatly, but the edge in her voice told Joe this wasn't the end of it. "But you have to understand, it's not that simple." "I know," Sarah replied, her eyes glistening. "I only wish I could undo everything, the hurt and confusion, especially for your girls." Joe sensed the fight building within Lisa. This was the woman he loved, but right now, a storm cloud brewed in her eyes. It was about the girls for all of us, but it's also about Joe and me. This conversation isn't just about the past. It's about moving forward. "Exactly," Sarah said softly, meeting Lisa's gaze these days, a complicated softness mixing with their circumstances. "I want you both to be okay. I didn't think it'd go this far. Neither did I, Joe admitted, the weight of his decisions crumbling against the honesty of their predicament. But I can't pretend it didn't happen, either. I have to face the mess I made and try to clean it up starting with you, Lisa. The silence that followed was deafening. Joe could feel the tension rolling off of Lisa, like waves crashing against the shore. It was a waterfall of emotions, pain, anger, but also a flicker of courage. Lisa turned back to Joe, her expression softening just a fraction. What do you really want, Joe? Because everyone deserves peace, including the girls. If we're going to fix this, it needs to start with us. I want to be a better husband and father, Joe said, standing firm. But I need to know what you want too. What keeps you from believing in us again? I want to believe we can heal, Lisa replied, each word carefully chosen. But healing doesn't happen overnight. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, catching the weight of their shared history hanging in the air. I don't want to interfere. Maybe I should just go? No, Joe found himself saying before he could catch his breath. You're part of this too. You deserve to be heard. The moment hung, promising yet fragile. Lisa's eyes darted to his, searching for something he wasn't sure he had the strength to give. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the porch, the three of them were caught in a web of tangled emotions. Let us start with trust, Joe suggested. We can meet again, figure this out together. But the look in Lisa's eyes wasn't just acceptance, it was a challenge. What if confronting the past meant acknowledging truths he wasn't ready to face? In that instant, Joe felt the weight of what lay ahead, a slow crawl toward trust or a plunge into uncertainty. Could they really face the future without the safety net of the past holding them back? Sarah's voice was small, a whisper against the rising tide of emotions that surrounded them. I don't want this to be a repeat of the past. I don't want to hurt anyone more than I already have. Joe watched her closely, the pain in her eyes reflecting the burden they all carried. This moment wasn't just about words. It was about healing the fractures, about piecing together lives that had been shattered. Lisa finally took a deep breath, letting her arms drop to her sides. No one is to blame anymore. We all made choices whether we were aware of what they meant or not. Joe could see the struggle inside her, the wheels turning as she weighed the implications of their past against a possible future. Healing was a journey, and every journey required sacrifices. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, Joe said, his voice steady. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I want to change, to fight for our family. But I need you both with me. For a fleeting moment, there was a flicker of uncertainty in Lisa's eyes. Joe felt hope swell in his chest, a warm ember igniting against the chill of their prior arguments. Maybe we can meet halfway, Sarah suggested, her expression shifting from apprehensive to slightly optimistic. We each lay things on the table. No more secrets, no more accusations. That sounds fair, Lisa replied, and Joe saw more than just resignation in her gaze. There was a glimmer of something deeper understanding, perhaps. But it will take time, she warned, the steel creeping back into her voice. I'm still processing. I have to think about the girls too, and what this means for them. I get that, Joe responded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle back onto his shoulders. We can start slow. I'll do the work, show you both I can be trusted. Silence punctuated his words, an unspoken agreement hanging in the thickening air. Sarah hesitated, visibly torn. And maybe I can be there to support, not to interfere, but to help make up for what I did. No, Lisa cut in swiftly, her gaze sharp. This needs to be about us. You can't just slip back in and erase what happened. We all have scars. Joe's heart sank a little. He knew this was true. The wounds ran deep, and words could only go so far. He felt caught between two worlds, both vibrant with possibilities, yet both fraught with potential pain. Let us meet next week, Joe suggested, desperate to keep the momentum moving forward. We could talk, maybe over coffee like old friends. Lisa nodded slowly, reluctance giving way to a sense of cautious hope. We'll see, but it won't just be about talking. I need to see changes. As the sun set, casting golden hues around them, Joe felt a flicker of optimism in the air. Perhaps they were standing at the edge of something new, something healing. But as they all stood up to part ways, the uncertainty loomed like dark clouds over a bright sky. What if real change was too steep a hill to climb? Could Joe honestly prove he was worthy of the family he almost lost? And more importantly, would Sarah find a place in their lives after all? With that thought hanging heavily, he turned to look at Sarah one last time. Her eyes held a question he wasn't yet ready to answer. What would the next chapter of their lives hold as they began this delicate dance toward forgiveness? The following week, anticipation hummed like electricity in the air. Joe stood outside the coffee shop, hands tucked in his pockets, catching himself glancing at the clock. Each tick echoed his nerves. Would they come? Would Lisa drop her guard? Would Sarah still feel the weight of the past pressing against her? As the door swung open, the bell chimed, and Sarah emerged first, her expression both hopeful and anxious. She looked around, her shoulders slightly hunched, as if bracing herself for the storm of feelings they were about to wade through. Joe waved, a mix of relief and trepidation flooding over him. "Hey," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Glad you made it." "Me too," Sarah replied, her smile tentative but genuine. They waited a moment, their eyes drifting to the street like leaves caught in a breeze. Then Lisa walked in, her presence commanding yet weary. There was a tightness in her jaw as she approached. The air thickened with unspoken words, a palpable tension hanging above them. "Let us get a table," she suggested, nodding toward a quiet corner. They settled in, the familiar scent of coffee swirling around them, warming the space. The atmosphere was charged, a delicate combination of hope and apprehension. Joe could feel it coiling tight in his chest. "How do we start?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence with a barely audible tremor in her voice. Lisa took a deep breath, her gaze settling firmly on Joe. "I think we should begin with honesty. Lay it all out, no filters. It's the only way we'll move forward." Joe nodded, his heart racing. "All right, then let me go first." The words rushed out of him, a floodgate opened. "I messed up. I know that. I've hurt you both. I put myself first for too long. But I want to make that right." Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her eyes searching Lisa's as if for permission. "Joe," Lisa began, her voice steady but softening. "It's not just about you anymore. It's about what we all lost, the trust, the connections. It takes so much more than just words." "I know," Joe replied, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I'm here to show you. I want to work for it, for everything. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes." Silence hung heavy, an oscillation of palpable tension. Joe's palms went cold against the warmth of his coffee cup, anxiety clawing at him. He looked at Sarah, her expression a mixture of pain and regret echoing his own. She started hesitating. "I never wanted to come between you two." It felt like everything was spiraling out of control. A flicker of sadness swept across Lisa's face. "It was Sarah. We were all caught in that storm. But we can't go back to how things were. We need to build something new." Joe saw Lisa's vulnerability, the cracks beginning to show. He also saw Sarah's determination to not disrupt what they were trying to repair. It was like watching a fragile dance, each step calculated, hesitant. "Maybe we could try some family activities?" Joe suggested weakly, desperate for any input that could draw them closer. "Something low pressure, just us get to know each other again without the weight of the past." Lisa nodded slowly, considering. "That could work if you're serious about changing." Sarah breathed out, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I'd be open to that, just as trying." But as they smiled faintly at one another, a wave of uncertainty washed over Joe. What if they were stepping into quicksand instead of solid ground? He knew they couldn't ignore the hurt and betrayal that lay beneath the surface as they sat together, sharing tentative laughter and quiet conversation. A sense of fragile hope bloomed, but an unmistakable tension remained, a reminder that forgiveness wasn't free. It would be hard-earned in that moment. Joe couldn't shake the feeling of looming shadows, hidden doubts lurking just out of sight. What if their efforts to patch things up would only lead to bigger heartbreak ahead? As they prepared to part ways, echoes of their laughter lingered, and Joe's heart raced with silent prayers for what was to come. Would they really be able to connect again, or would old wounds reopen as time went on? And as Joe started to walk away, he glanced back, catching Sarah's gaze. There was a storm brewing behind those eyes, a question lingering silently between them. Was it worth the risk to go any further? The following weekend, the air was thick with cautious optimism. Joe found himself at the park, a sprawling canvas of greens under the blooming spring sky. Today they were supposed to start fresh, embarking on their mission to reconnect as a family. Every step was heavy with a mixture of excitement and dread. As they gathered on a picnic blanket, Joe felt the warm sun kissing his skin, but his insides were twisted in knots. Lisa arrived first, her movement careful and measured, as though each step might provoke the specter of their past. She set her basket down and arranged the fruits carefully, avoiding eye contact. Joe caught a glimpse of uncertainty in her gaze, the same uncertainty that had built a wall between them. "Hey," Lisa greeted, her voice steady, though her hands were visibly trembling. "Hey, Lisa," Joe replied, forcing a smile. "I'm glad you're here." A moment later, Sarah appeared, her expression brightening the atmosphere like a soft ray of sunshine breaking through heavy clouds. She carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, a symbol of peace and healing. "I thought these would brighten the day," she said, handing them to Joe. He felt a surge of warmth at her gesture and gingerly accepted them. "Thank you, Sarah. They're beautiful," Joe said, glancing between the two women. Their eyes locked momentarily, each one reflecting a mix of hope and doubt as they settled into their picnic. The conversation flowed with awkward stumbles, each anecdote full of hesitance. They shared stories from their childhood, laughter bubbling up in spurts, but it felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep could send them crashing into a bottomless pit of unresolved feelings. "Do you remember the camping trip we took?" Sarah ventured, her eyes lighting up with the memory. "We almost set the tent on fire with marshmallows." Joe chuckled at the thought. He remembered racing to put out the flames. "Yeah, and you blamed on my terrible roasting skills." He turned to Lisa, his heart pounding with vulnerability. "It was a good time, wasn't it? Just us against the world." Lisa gave a small smile, but her eyes held shadowed reflections of the past. "Yeah, but we can't pretend like everything is simple again. We have to confront things together." Joe's heart sank. He nodded, knowing she was right, but part of him desperately wanted to cling to this moment of normalcy, the light-hearted joy they once shared. "I get it," he said quietly. "I can do that, as long as we're all in this together." For a brief moment, they shared an unspoken agreement, a fragile promise to keep forging ahead, skipping over the bumps as best they could. But in the back of Joe's mind, a question gnawed at him. Were they really ready to heal? Or were they just having a fleeting moment of peace before the storm returned? The thought lingered, and he could sense the tension building again, ready to poke its head above the surface. As the day drew on, laughter rang out, punctuated by the occasional vulnerability seeping through. The wildflowers, now scattered across the blanket, stood as a testament to their effort, beautiful yet precarious in their fragility. Just as Joe leaned back in relief, savoring the moment, Sarah's voice broke the spell. "You know, there is something I've been meaning to say. Something I need to get off my chest." The words hung in the air, heavy and electrifying. The atmosphere shifted instantly, the laughter silenced and replaced by a hush soaked in uncertainty. Joe's heart raced. What could this revelation mean for them? The answer felt like a distant echo, yet he knew it could change everything. Would it bring them closer, or would it unravel the thread they were trying to sew back together? What awaited them just beyond the edge of this fragile day? The hush that followed Sarah's words felt like a sudden freeze frame in time. Joe's heart thumped in his chest, each beat drumming louder in his ears. He exchanged glances with Lisa, whose expression mirrored his own mix of anxiety and curiosity. It was as if they all knew that the course of this shaky reunion hinged on whatever Sarah was about to reveal. "Sarah, what is it?" Lisa prodded gently, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost trembling, but there was a layer of strength beneath the surface. With a deep breath, Sarah looked down at her wildflower bouquet, fingers fidgeting with the delicate stems. I've been wrestling with this for a while. I want to be honest with both of you. Joe's breath caught. Honesty was the last thing he was sure they could handle right now. Go ahead, he urged, his voice barely above a whisper. It's about the time we spent apart, and the things that happened afterward. She paused, glancing from Joe to Lisa, gauging their reactions. Mom and Dad. They thought I wasn't being truthful when I said I wanted to spend time with you both. But the truth is, I felt lost after everything. I struggled to figure out where I fit after the divorce. Joe felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Lisa reached for Sarah's hand, offering silent support. And I wanted you both to know that I didn't blame either of you for what happened, Sarah continued, her voice thickening with emotion. But I also started seeing someone who helped me cope, and it got complicated. Joe and Lisa exchanged sharp breaths, the air thickening with the weight of her words. Joe felt a mix of heartbreak and concern. He hoped their family could overcome its hurdles without additional complications. Sarah, are you okay? Joe ventured, needing to understand. I'm trying to be, she replied, her voice breaking slightly. But I need to tell you that this person, they're important to me, and I want you both to meet them. However, I'm scared. What if you both reject this part of my life? What if it brings back all the unresolved stuff? Joe felt every word wash over him like waves. He saw Lisa grapple with her feelings, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. They had both been afraid of facing their past, and here was Sarah, on the verge of bringing something new and potentially destabilizing into their fragile patchwork of a family. Sarah, we just want what's best for you, Lisa encouraged. We just need time to process. We love you. A flicker of hope danced in Sarah's eyes, but Joe felt an undercurrent of fear. He wanted to be supportive, yet he could feel the familiar tug of old wounds beginning to surface. What would this new person mean for their family? Would they steal Sarah away, leaving them behind once again? You're still our daughter, Joe said, forcing himself to sound steady. We'll figure this out. Together. But even as he spoke, a weight settled on his heart. Just then, an unforeseen noise broke through their moment, the bark of a dog nearby, followed by laughter from a family gathering on the other side of the park. The reality hit them all again. Life was moving forward, whether they were ready or not. I hope you'll both give my friend a chance, Sarah said softly, her voice barely above the din surrounding them. I need you both in my life. Joe nodded, but doubts swirled inside him like a summer storm gathering overhead. Would they truly navigate this new path together? As the shadows began to stretch across the park, the promise of confrontation loomed on the horizon, waiting just out of reach. Joe couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change again, and they had only just begun to heal. His thoughts lingered on that uncertainty, and as they finished their picnic, the wildflowers, now wilted a bit, seemed to echo his emotions with beauty born from vulnerability, teetering on the edge of chaos. What could happen next? Would they welcome the new person Sarah wanted to introduce, or would they find themselves entangled in another cycle of hurt and doubt? The path forward was clouded with question marks, and Joe realized that the hardest part wasn't just about moving on, it was about holding on to hope amidst the unknown. The sunlight dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park as Joe and Lisa gathered their things. They moved in silence, the weight of Sarah's revelation hanging between them like a dense fog. Joe's mind raced with questions, each one more daunting than the last. How could they adjust to this new reality? Would Sarah's friend be someone they could accept? Or was this just another loss they would have to grieve? Lisa broke the silence first, her voice strained but resolute. We need to talk about it. I can't just pretend it's not there, Joe. He nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude and anxiety. It was good to know she was feeling the weight of it too. Yeah, I know. But it's hard. I just don't want her to be happy, you know? But I also... He trailed off, unable to articulate the tangled thoughts in his mind. Lisa shifted slightly, her eyes fixing on the horizon. We both remember how everything fell apart. It's terrifying to think of someone else stepping into her life. But she seems to feel secure with this person, whoever they are. Joe shoved his hands into his pockets, feeling the rough fabric of his jeans against his skin. What if this person wants to take her away? What if they remind her of everything we've tried to forget? I don't think that's what Sarah wants, Lisa replied gently. She has been suffering too, Joe. Maybe this is her way of healing. Or at least trying to. He sighed, glancing at Sarah, who was chatting with a dog-walking couple nearby, a bright smile breaking through her earlier tension. She looked so carefree, so removed from the shadows of their past. Part of him wanted to share her joy, but he couldn't shake the unease curling in his stomach. Can we give this friend a chance? Lisa asked, her voice almost a whisper, laced with hope. I mean, for Sarah's sake? Joe looked at her, surprised. Are you really suggesting we just meet them? After everything? Why not? Maybe this is a new beginning for all of us. If this person brings her joy, we should at least try to understand it. Joe felt the weight of his hesitation. But what if it opens up old wounds? Or what if it heals them? Lisa countered, her gaze steady. We can't keep letting our past decisions dictate Sarah's future. She deserves a chance to define her own life. He watched as Sarah brushed back her hair, laughing brightly at something the couple said. That image tugged at his heart. Could it be that simple? Could they all find a way to weave their lives together again, even with this new thread? Okay, he finally said, his voice firm, though insecurity lingered. We'll meet them, but I need you with me, Lisa. Facing this together. Always, she replied, the warmth of her words wrapping around him like a familiar blanket. But be prepared. It might not go the way we hope. The thought stung. Joe braced himself, his heart racing at the potential for confrontation. What if they weren't ready for this? What if seeing that friend brought all the questions to the surface, reigniting old fears they had been trying to suppress? Just as he was about to voice another fear, Sarah approached them, her smile contagious. The energy in the air shifted, and for a moment, Joe forgot about his worries. Are you guys ready? Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I can't wait for you to meet him. He forced a smile, feeling the tightrope of hope and dread beneath his feet. Yeah, we're ready, he replied, but uncertainty flooded his chest. As they walked towards the gathering crowd, Joe's heart pounded with a confusing mix of hope and trepidation. The upcoming moment felt monumental, like stepping into the unknown. But what would happen if they didn't like this person? If Sarah's happiness hinged on another, how would they respond? As the unavoidable confrontation loomed ahead, he steeled himself, hoping against hope that they wouldn't lose her again. What awaited them on the other side of this reveal? Would they embrace this change, or would it be the start of another fracture in their already fragile family? As they neared the gathering crowd, Joe's thoughts spun wildly. Sarah skipped ahead, her joy palpable. He could see her dimples deepen as she smiled. It hurt to think about what might happen, how quickly things could shift. Just breathe, Lisa whispered, staying close. We're in this together. Joe nodded, forcing himself to focus on Sarah. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves above them, the sounds of laughter mingling with the distant hum of the city. It was a beautiful day for new beginnings, or at least that's what they hoped. They reached a small clearing where a group had formed, chatter rising and falling like ocean waves. The faces were familiar, but blurred by apprehension. And then he saw him. The man standing beside Sarah was tall, with tousled hair and a relaxed smile. He waved at Joe and Lisa, clearly enjoying the moment. Joe's heart raced. Was this the person who might fill the void that Sarah struggled with? Everyone, this is Jamie, Sarah announced, her voice bright with enthusiasm. He is a new friend I met at the art class. The introductions flowed like a river. Joe and Lisa offered timid smiles while Jamie introduced himself. There was something genuine in his eyes, a kindness that hinted at good intentions. Joe's instinct urged caution, though. This was advanced territory he never navigated. Have you guys known each other long? Lisa asked, her voice steady but layered with skepticism. Not long, but we clicked right away. Sarah S. got this amazing energy that drew me in, Jamie said, glancing at Sarah, whose cheeks colored slightly at the compliment. That warmth was hard to dismiss. Joe felt his chest tighten. It wasn't purely jealousy. It was fear. Hadn't they suffered enough? Could this single moment unravel all the healing they had fought for? So, Jamie, what do you do? Joe managed to ask, his words gravelly as he tried to mask his anxiety. I'm an illustrator, mostly freelance work. I love what I do creating, imagining. But what I love even more are the connections I make through it. Jamie's eyes sparkled, and for a fleeting second, Joe could see why Sarah was drawn to him. Connections, Joe repeated, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Yeah, those could be important. The air felt electric, and Sarah was radiant. She shared stories of their art sessions, her laughter ringing out as she illustrated Jamie as quirky styles. Joe glanced at Lisa, who watched with a furrowed brow, clearly discerning the layers behind their cheer. Minutes passed, but it felt like an eternity. Joe struggled with the growing knot in his stomach, the gnawing fear that clung to his insides. What was next? Where was the line between welcoming a new part in Sarah's life and accepting the reality of their own? Suddenly, a silence fell over the group as Jamie turned to Sarah. I know this is all very new, but I want to be someone for you, whatever that looks like. Joe's heart lurched. He recognized those words framed in hope but tinged with uncertainty. His stomach dropped. Were they too fragile to let someone in? That single statement slid a curtain between them and the future. Whatever was next felt daunting. It's scary. I senti it, Lisa whispered, her fingers tightening around Joe's wrist as if grounding him. What if we lose her again? He replied, his voice barely audible. They stood there, listening to Sarah's laughter. Yet that laughter felt like a distant echo now, overshadowed by the dawning reality of potential loss. In that moment, they both teetered on a precipice, the ground shifting beneath their feet. But little did they know, Jamie's role was destined to change everything. Would it push them apart, or could it bring a chance for wholeness in a fractured family? As Joe watched Sarah smile at Jamie, he felt the weight of an impending decision settle heavily on his shoulders. What should they embrace? Could this be the breaking point, or the moment they'd all been waiting for? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, stretching shadows across the park, Joe stood frozen, a storm of emotions raging inside him. He watched Sarah chat with Jamie, her laughter floating in the air like music, yet each one felt like a distant echo. A wave of nostalgia washed over him, reminding him of all the joy and pain that had colored their past. Would reopening this chapter lead them back to heartache, or was it an opportunity to build something better? Are we really doing this? He muttered to Lisa, his voice barely above a whisper. Her grip tightened on his arm, a tether grounding him to the moment. There was fear swirling in her eyes, mirroring his, as they both faced the reality of their daughter moving forward in a way that could either heal or shatter their fragile family. Let us give Sarah a chance, Lisa urged, her tone steady. We've all changed. We can't dictate who she loves or wants in her life. All we can do is show support. You're right, he conceded, though his heart still stuttered with doubt. I just hope that Jamie understands the significance of this moment. With a steadying breath, Joe pulled himself forward, bracing to embrace the next chapter, however uncertain it felt. They played along for a while, sharing laughter, engaging with the group, but Joe remained acutely aware of the underlying tension. He could feel it coil tighter with each passing moment, like a taut string stretched to its limit. Then, out of nowhere, Jamie turned his gaze toward Joe and Lisa, a soft smile on his face. I'm grateful for this chance to meet you both. I know Sarah has been through a lot, and I want to make sure I'm supportive and respectful about it. Something in Joe stirred. He detected sincerity in Jamie's tone. It sounds like you care about her, he replied slowly, weighing every word. That's important, especially for us. Ido, yame affirmed. I care for her happiness above all. I want to build something genuine. The warmth of those words swept through Joe, igniting a flicker of hope. For the first time since they arrived, he felt slightly reassured. As they continued to engage, Sarah's laughter danced around them, punctuated by thoughtful exchanges. But as the conversation flowed, Joe realized he needed to take a deeper step. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun linger on his skin. "Sarah," he called out gently, drawing her attention. "Can we talk for a moment? Just us?" The laughter paused as Sarah's bright smile waned just slightly, sensing the gravity. "Of course." She stepped toward him, Jamie giving them the space they needed as they left the crowd behind. Joe could see the small concerns in her eyes. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. He took a moment to gauge her, the girl who had once been so carefree. "I need you to know that no matter what, I love you," he said, wrapping his arms around her in a hug. "We can handle whatever's next together." Tears sparkled in Sarah's eyes, and his heart expanded at such raw emotion. I feel stuck. It's like everything is changing so fast, and I don't know if this is the right path for me. "It's okay to feel that way," he assured her, pulling back to look her in the eyes. "But you have to trust yourself. We believe in you, and we'll always have your back. Just remember, we're a team. You don't have to navigate this alone." In that moment, Joe realized they hadn't just been trapped in the chaos of their family's issues. They had also huddled together in a corner of despair, afraid to embrace the levers of change. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much that means to me." But before he could respond, laughter erupted from the crowd behind them, pulling both their eyes. It was Lisa, talking animatedly to Jamie, her laughter intertwining with the joy in Sarah's heart. Joe's heart swelled. In that moment, he saw something beautiful. It wasn't just about Sarah's happiness. It was about reconnecting as a family, rediscovering their essence amidst change. Returning to the gathering, Joe felt a shift within himself and his family. They were ready to support one another, opening the door to fresh possibilities while taking steps toward the healing they all craved. "Let us embrace this," Lisa said, her voice firm yet clear as she intertwined her fingers through Joe's, a silent promise echoing between them. Together, Joe responded, feeling the weight of his past lift, if only for a moment. As the shadows grew long and laughter filled the park, Joe realized that while their journey ahead held uncertainty, it was woven with threads of hope, courage, and the promise of transforming pain into a tapestry of love. They stepped forward, facing the future with open hearts, willing to embrace whatever came next, whether joy or challenge. Because they were family strong, flawed, and ready to write the next chapter together. The sun dipped below the horizon, marking the end of the day, but lighting the way to new beginnings. Together, they could face anything one heartbeat at a time. Now's your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories filled with life-changing moments. Give us a like now to feed the algorithm, making sure fresh stories keep coming your way. Comment below with your reactions to this heartwarming ending and share your feelings. Your voice matters. And don't wait not even one more second to share this incredible video with at least 5 friends who need a sprinkle of inspiration in their lives. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these simple actions.